Evan Holt stepped off the transport shuttle with the quiet confidence of someone used to repairing things no one else wanted to touch. He wasn't a soldier, not a fighter, and not someone who liked the idea of war. He was a human engineer who preferred calm spaces, broken machines, and the slow hum of tools. But on this mission, he found none of that calm. The shuttle door opened to reveal a mercenary ship that had clearly survived a fierce battle only a day before. Panels were torn open, wires hung loose from the ceiling, and pieces of metal floated in the artificial gravity field like forgotten puzzle pieces. Sparks jumped from damaged circuits, and the air smelled faintly of burned material. He swallowed hard. The captain had warned him the mercenary crew wasn't easy to work with. They were from a dozen different species, hardened by years of dangerous missions. They didn't trust outsiders, and especially didn't trust humans. But the ship needed repairs before its next assignment. Evan was the only engineer the station had available. The first thing he noticed was not the damage, or the crew watching him with cold curiosity. It was her. A tall alien stood near the back of the corridor, half hidden in the shadows. Her armor was dark silver with soft blue lights across the chest and shoulders. She was a Rivcan, a species known for being strong, disciplined, and very private. They never showed their faces to strangers, never removed their armor, unless alone or with someone they trusted deeply. Evan had read about them, but this was the first time he'd seen one in person. She stood still, almost too still. Her helmet was shaped like a smooth crest, designed to show nothing of her emotions. She watched him but tried not to. Her head would turn toward him, then jerk away whenever he looked back. It took him only a moment to understand she was shy. A mercenary, yes. A warrior, yes. But shy, in a quiet and almost gentle way. The captain of the ship arrived with heavy steps. He was an older alien, with a scar down his cheek. The kind of leader who had probably survived more battles than Evan had repaired machines. "Human," the captain said in a serious tone. "You work fast, yes?" "The ship leaves again in 12 hours. I'll do my best," Evan replied. He didn't want trouble, didn't want to slow them down, and definitely didn't want to disappoint a crew filled with people who could crush him with one hand. "Good," the captain gestured, toward the tall armored woman. "Kari will watch you. She is one of our best." The mercenary caressed stiffly, as if uncomfortable with being pointed at. She stepped forward with quiet, heavy footsteps. Even though she was taller and stronger, there was no threat in her movement, only nervousness. Evan could sense it in the way her hands twitched near her belt, as if unsure where to put them. Evan nodded politely. "Nice to meet you." She didn't respond at first. She seemed to think about what she should say. Then her voice came out low and soft, almost frightened. "You will stay close to me. The ship is not safe right now." Her voice surprised him. It didn't match his idea of a battle mercenary. It sounded careful, polite, and a little unsure. He found himself smiling. "All right. I'll follow your lead." Kari stiffened at his smile, like she didn't know how to react to kindness. Her visor tilted down for a second before she motioned for him to walk. They moved deeper into the ship. Every hallway showed signs of the recent fight scorch marks from plasma shots. Deep scratches where blades had scraped metal, and entire sections where panels had collapsed. Evan took notes, checked broken systems, and planned how to prioritize repairs. Kari followed closely behind him, her boots silent, her posture alert. Whenever a sound echoed down the corridor, she would shift quickly, placing herself between Evan and the noise. It happened the first time, when they reached a large engineering room. A distant clang echoed from somewhere above, and before Evan could react, Kari was standing in front of him like a shield. Her stance sharpened, her hand resting on her weapon. Evan blinked. "Is everything okay?" She didn't move for several seconds, scanning every corner. Only when she felt sure the danger had passed did she relax a little. "Old drones. They fall sometimes," she muttered. He couldn't help but smile again. "Thanks for the protection." Her head snapped away from him so fast that it was almost funny. She was hiding a reaction, but Evan couldn't see her face behind the helmet. He could only imagine the expression she didn't want him to see. He went to work on a broken power relay station. It required him to kneel on the floor and reach into a tight space full of damaged wires. As he worked, Kari paced behind him like a worried guardian. She checked every shadow, every open hatch, every possible danger. Her movements were careful but tense, like someone used to fighting but not used to having someone to protect. After 20 minutes, Evan heard her take a deep breath behind him. When he glanced back, he noticed her left arm armor was cracked, revealing a thin line of blue skin beneath. She must have been hit in the last battle. He stood up quickly. "You're injured." Kari jumped back as if startled. "It is nothing," she said, voice tight. "Only surface damage. You should get that checked." "No." She stepped back again, shaking her head. "I will handle it later. I do not need attention." He frowned gently. "You're hurt." "It's all right to let someone help." She froze, unsure how to respond. Evan didn't get closer, not wanting to make her nervous. "If you need space, I'll give you space." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached for a latch on her armor. She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Her voice came out smaller than before. "No. No peeking human." Immediately, Evan turned around, facing the wall. "Of course. I won't look." She stayed silent for a moment, surprised by how quickly he respected her request. Then he heard the soft clicking of armor being removed, her quiet breath of discomfort, and the gentle sound of her adjusting the damaged part. It took about a minute before she said softly, "You may turn now." He faced her again, careful not to stare. The armor plating on her arm was sealed again, though her movements still seemed slightly painful. "Better?" he asked. She nodded with a tiny motion. Yes. They continued deeper into the damaged ship. The more Evan worked, the more Kari followed and guarded him. And the more he watched her, the more he realized how much effort she put into hiding her shyness. She worked with discipline, never complained, never stepped away from him, and never removed her helmet again. But he noticed she always stood close enough to protect him, even when she pretended she wasn't. Whenever he needed tools, she handed them without him asking. Whenever a hallway looked unstable, she tested it first with steady footsteps. Whenever he rubbed his tired eyes, she stood taller, as if trying to make her presence stronger so he wouldn't feel alone. At one point, he climbed a ladder to fix a broken overhead circuit. Kari stayed below, ready to catch him if he slipped. A strange sound echoed through the ship, and she immediately stepped onto the ladder a few rungs behind him. "Move fast," she warned in a whisper. "Something is crawling in the vents." He didn't doubt her. He finished the repair in record time, guided partly by skill and partly by the fear of disappointing the giant warrior watching him with quiet concern. Hours passed like this, Seven repairing, Kari guarding. They rarely spoke, but the silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was steady, almost peaceful. He could feel her trust growing very slowly, like a plant learning how to reach towards sunlight. By the end of the shift, the captain returned. "Good work," he said. "The ship will be ready for travel soon." Kari said nothing, but Evan noticed the faint way her shoulders relaxed. She had been guarding him for hours, and the effort showed. As they walked back to the shuttle dock, she stopped suddenly. Evan turned, confused. She stood still, helmet angled slightly downward. "You worked well," she said quietly, as if the words were heavy. "I will guard you again tomorrow." Before he could reply, she stepped back into the shadows, disappearing almost shyly. Evan smiled to himself. The quiet mercenary who barely spoke had decided. He was worth protecting. He didn't know yet that this small moment of trust would grow into something far greater, something that would change both of their lives. The next morning, the mercenary ship felt different to Evan Holt. It wasn't the damage, though. There was still plenty left to repair. And it wasn't the noise of crew members preparing for departure. It was the presence waiting for him at the entrance of the engineering bay. Kari stood there silently, as if she had arrived early just so she wouldn't miss him. She didn't say anything, but the way she lifted her head when he approached told him she had been expecting him. "You're early," Evan said softly. Her visor tilted downward for a second, like she wasn't sure if coming early was the right thing. "I wanted to check the area before you arrived," she said. "To make sure it is safe?" He nodded with a grateful smile. I appreciate it. Kari didn't respond, but he noticed her armor shift slightly, as if she had taken a small, relieved breath. They spent the first hour checking the systems he had repaired the day before. Kari stayed close, watching every corridor and every shadow. Whenever another mercenary walked past, she subtly moved between them and Evan, as if she didn't want anyone getting too close to him. She didn't do it in a possessive way, more like a shield that automatically put itself between danger and the thing it was protecting. When they reached the power core chamber, the captain was already waiting. He held a datapad and looked serious. "Engineer Holt," he said, "we have a mission today. High risk." Evan felt his stomach tighten. "What kind of mission?" "The enemy has been hiding an ancient beacon inside an abandoned asteroid base. The beacon holds information about their future plans. We need that information if we want to stop a larger conflict." Evan blinked. "And I'm going, why me?" "You are the only one who understands the old human-compatible systems that might be inside the beacon," the captain explained. "We need your knowledge." Kari shifted beside him, her posture stiffening. Her voice came out low. "I will go with him." The captain nodded. "Of course. You two worked well yesterday." "And Kari?" "Keep him alive." Kari lowered her head briefly. "I will." Evan felt something warm in his chest at the certainty in her voice. The mission preparations were quick. Kari checked her weapons twice, her armor 3 times. And then she stood beside Evan as the small transport shuttle lifted off from the mercenary ship. The ride was bumpy, filled with turbulence as they approached the asteroid belt. The base itself was hidden inside a broken chunk of rock, lit only by faint emergency lights that flickered weakly. When they landed inside a narrow hangar tunnel, the atmosphere was strange and heavy. The lights flickered again, and the floor was littered with dust and broken metal. Evan took a deep breath. "Well, this looks inviting." Kari stepped forward, shield raised. "Stay behind me." They began moving through the base. Every room felt abandoned for decades. Empty crates, broken screens, old cables lying like forgotten roots. But the silence was not peaceful, it felt like something was waiting. Evan could sense Kari tense more with every step. After 15 minutes, they reached a door sealed by a control panel that looked half-fried. Evan knelt beside it and pulled out his tools. "Give me a few minutes." Kari stood directly behind him, close enough that he could hear her soft breathing through her armor. Every time a piece of debris shifted or a faint metallic clink echoed in the distance, she moved instantly, raising her weapon. "I've almost got it," he whispered. Kari said nothing, but her presence felt like a wall of protection behind him. The door slid open with a groan. The hallway beyond was darker and colder. Kari stepped inside first, scanning every angle with careful precision. Evan followed, holding his portable light. Suddenly a drone dropped from the ceiling, its metal claws extended. Before Evan could scream, Kari moved quicker than he could see. Her blade flashed once, cutting the drone in half before it hit the ground. The impact sent pieces flying across the floor. Evan stared, stunned. "That was..." Fast. Kari didn't turn fully to face him, but her voice came soft. "You were in danger." He smiled shakily.
Thanks.
"I owe you one." She froze for a moment, then whispered so quietly he could barely hear it. "You owe me nothing." He continued deeper into the base, fighting off old security drones, avoiding rusted traps, and moving through rooms filled with dust-covered equipment. Kari led him safely through every step, never letting anything touch him. Evan could feel her worry growing stronger each time something attacked. She moved faster, guarded him closer, checked every corner twice. When they reached a large chamber with a cracked skylight showing the cold stars above, Kari suddenly stopped. She raised her hand, signaling him to halt. "Something is wrong." Evan looked around nervously. "What do you mean?" "Listen," she said. He did. At first he heard nothing, just the faint hum of the old bass. But then he noticed it. A low, mechanical clicking. Slow and steady, a swarm of stealth drones slid out of the walls, activated by their presence. The first drone shot a beam toward Evan. Kari threw him to the ground and blocked the beam with her shield. Sparks flew as she pushed forward, slashing one drone after another. Evan crawled behind a broken console, trying to stay out of the way, Kari. He shouted, "Behind you?" She spun, slicing another drone before it could attack her back. But there were too many. One drone struck her arm, breaking the same armor plate she had patched the day before. She staggered, struggling to keep her balance. "No," Evan whispered. "Kari!" She didn't answer. She fought harder, but the damage slowed her movements. When a drone shot a blast at Evan, she lunged in front of him and took the hit to her shoulder. The impact sent her falling to one knee. "No." Evan rushed forward, grabbing her arm. "Kari, get back." She looked up at him shakily. "Stay behind me." "No," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving you." Something in those words seemed to give her new strength. She took a deep breath, pushed herself up, and fought with renewed energy. The drones fell one by one until silence returned. Kari's breathing was heavy. Evan grabbed her uninjured arm and helped her stay upright. "You saved my life back there." Her voice was soft and tired. "It is my duty," Evan said gently. "It's more than duty." She didn't respond, but he could see her visor dip downward, as if she didn't know how to accept the compliment. They pressed on. Finally, they reached the ancient beacon. It stood in the center of a circular room, glowing faintly blue. Evan ran to the console beside it and connected his tools. The hologram above the beacon flickered to life, displaying a map of the region. Red lights moved across the map, enemy fleets heading toward human space. Evan's heart dropped. This is bad. We need to take this data. Kari stood guard while he worked quickly, downloading everything into his portable drive. But the moment he finished, the ground shook violently. The old base had begun to collapse. "We have to go," Evan shouted. Kari grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the exit. But halfway through the corridor, part of the ceiling collapsed. A beam crashed down, trapping Evan's leg. He cried out in pain. Kari whirled around. "Evan." He tried to lift the heavy metal beam but couldn't. "Go. You have to escape with the data." Kari stood frozen for 1 second, shocked that he would even suggest she abandon him. Then her voice erupted, not loud, but filled with fear. "I will not leave you." She grabbed the beam and lifted it with strength fueled by pure determination. Evan crawled free, and she pulled him to his feet. They ran together, dodging falling debris and collapsing walls. Kari stayed close, gripping Evan's arm to make sure he didn't stumble again. When they reached the hangar, the entire asteroid shook violently. They jumped into the shuttle and launched just as the base collapsed behind them in a burst of dust and metal. But outside, things were worse. The enemy fleet surrounded the asteroid. Dozens of ships all pointed directly at them. Evan's heart pounded. "We can't escape. They'll destroy us." Kari rested a trembling hand on his shoulder. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Don't. Leave me." Evan looked at her. She had saved him again and again. She had protected him even when she was injured and afraid. He put his hand over hers. "I won't leave you. I promise." The enemy ships locked onto them with glowing red targeting lights. Kari tightened her grip on his shoulder. Preparing for the worst, far away, unnoticed by both of them, a faint signal blinked across space. It was Evan's emergency alert. Help was coming, but neither of them knew it yet. The shuttle shook as enemy targeting beams locked onto it from every direction. Evan held onto the side panels while Kari positioned herself in front of him, as if her armored body could shield him from an entire fleet. Her hands were steady, but he could see her chest rise and fall with quick breaths through the faint lights on her armor. She was frightened not of the battle, but of losing him. Evan felt a strange mix of fear and calm. He had no weapon, no special training, nothing that could help them escape. Yet Kari stood there, strong and quiet, her stance focused on keeping him safe, even if the world around them fell apart. "We can still make it," he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Kari shook her head slowly. "There are too many. They will fire soon." Evan looked out the small window. Dozens of hostile ships surrounded the asteroid, each one powerful enough to destroy them with a single blast. Their lights glowed red in the darkness, forming a wide circle around the tiny shuttle. The engines hummed beside him, struggling to hold the ship steady in the asteroid's weak gravity field. He moved closer to Kari. No matter what happens. I'm glad you were with me. Kari's helmet shifted slightly, almost like she wanted to look at him more closely. Her voice came out in a soft whisper that trembled with emotion. I'm glad you were with me too. Before either could say more, the shuttle alarm screamed. The enemy fleet fired first one beam, then another. Bright energy flashes rushed toward them. Kara grabbed Evan and pulled him close with one arm, raising her shield with the other, but shielding him from a full fleet's fire was impossible. Then something unexpected happened. A sudden burst of light exploded behind the enemy ships. A shockwave rippled outward. Evan blinked in surprise, leaning toward the cockpit window. What was that? He whispered. Kara turned her head. Do not know. Moments later, dozens of bright blue signs flashed on the shuttle's mapped new ships. Fast and powerful, emerging from hyperspace directly behind the enemy fleet. At first, Evan couldn't believe his eyes. Then his heart jumped so hard it made his breath catch. It's the human fleet, he said with disbelief. They came. Kari straightened. The light from the window reflected off her visor. Your people answered your distress signal. He hadn't even realized he sent it. The emergency beacon must have activated when the shuttle launched. The human battle group formed a wall of ships, blocking the enemy's aim. A fleet admiral's voice filled the shuttle speakers. Shuttle Lancer 7, this is Human Fleet Command. Hold position. We will cover you. Evan almost laughed with relief. They're here, Kari. They're actually here. Kari's shoulders loosened as the human ships fired back. In seconds, the calm void turned into a storm of blue and red light. Human cruisers launched heavy blasts that cut through enemy shields. The enemy returned fire, but the human fleet had come prepared with reinforcements, carriers, and rapid strike destroyers. The sky sparkled with streaks of energy as ship after ship exchanged fire. Evan turned to Kari. We're not trapped anymore. They'll get us out. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lowered her head slightly, like she was taking a moment to steady herself. When she spoke, her voice was soft. I've never seen humans fight for someone who is not one of their own. Evan smiled. Humans don't leave people behind, especially not their own crew. And you were with me. Kari froze. With you. Yes. He said gently. You fought for me?
No.
My people are fighting for us. The enemy ships focused their guns on the incoming human fleet. The sky filled with explosions. Evan felt the shuttle vibrating from the shockwaves. Kari moved to the controls and secured the stabilizers. Hey. Her movements quick and steady. We must get closer to the main fleet, she said. It is safer there. Evan nodded and helped her operate the console. Slowly, the shuttle drifted toward the human line of defense. A few enemy fighters broke formation and chased them, firing small blasts. Kari took manual control of the turret and shot them down with sharp precision. You're pretty good at that, Evan said. Kari didn't reply, but he could tell she was calmer. When she was acting to protect him, the shuttle finally reached the shadow of a large human carrier. A bay door opened, guiding them in with bright landing lights. As they entered, the atmosphere shifted. Instead of fear, there was warmth. Human crew members rushed forward, helping them land safely. The bay doors closed behind them, sealing out the chaos of battle. Once the engines powered down, Yvonne exhaled deeply and leaned back. We made it. Kari didn't move at first. She stood completely still, as if processing the fact that they were finally safe. When she stepped off the shuttle with Evan, her boots echoed across the metal floor. Human soldiers stared at her with wide eyes. Rifkin mercenaries were rare allies. Kari didn't look at them. She stayed close to Evan, almost pressed to his side, unsure how to act around so many strangers. A human officer approached. Engineer Holt, are you injured?
No.
I'm fine, Evan said. Kari saved me many times. The officer glanced at Kari, impressed. Then she has our respect. Kari didn't react, but Evan saw her fingers twitch slightly. A small nervous gesture she tried to hide. They were escorted to a briefing room where Evan uploaded the beacon data. The hologram map reappeared, showing the enemy fleets heading toward human space. The officers studied it closely. If we hadn't gotten this warning, the admiral said, we would have been ambushed. This data saves millions. Evan nodded. Kari helped me get it. She fought hard to keep us alive. The admiral looked at Kari with genuine gratitude. Then humanity owes you. Kari shifted uncomfortably and lowered her head. Only protected the engineer. That was enough, the admiral said. After the meeting, Evan and Kari were given a quiet room to rest. Kari stood near the wall, as if unsure whether she was allowed to sit. Evan sat on a small bench and patted the space beside him. You can sit, you know. Kari hesitated before slowly sitting beside him. She sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap, helmet facing forward. She didn't know how to relax in such a peaceful place. You don't have to be nervous, Evan said kindly. I am not nervous, she replied softly. I am unused to being safe. That made Evan's heart ache. You're safe now, I promise. She turned her helmet slightly toward him. You kept your word. You did not leave me. I never will. Kari stared at the floor. Then slowly, she lifted her hands to her helmet. She hesitated, as if battling with herself. Evan watched, not wanting to rush her. She took a quiet breath. You earned this, she whispered. With a soft click, she lifted her helmet halfway, just enough for Evan to see her eyes. They were bright, gentle, and filled with emotion she had kept hidden behind armor for so long. Evan felt warmth spread through him. She trusted him. Truly, Kari. Lowered her helmet again. But the meaning of that moment remained between them like a silent promise. A message soon arrived from the human command. Kari was invited to stay on the ship as an honored ally. She looked at Evan for guidance. What do you want? He asked. Kari's voice was soft, almost shy. I want to stay where you are. Evan smiled warmly, then stay. She nodded once, slowly, the smallest but most sincere gesture he had ever seen from her. Later, when they walked through the quiet corridors of the human ship together, Kari walked a little closer than before, so close their arms almost touched. She no longer hid in shadows or stiffened when someone looked at her. She walked with confidence, knowing she was accepted. Evan glanced at her. Kari? Yes. You really are something special. Kari's visor tilted down shyly. You are important to me. They walked on in peaceful silence, knowing their bond had only begun to grow. Beyond the stars, wars and dangers still existed. But for now, Evan and Kari had each other, and for the rest of the galaxy. The message was clear. When humanity stands with someone, they don't just offer strength, they offer loyalty, hope, and a future worth fighting for, together or apart. Humans and allies alike understood one truth. No one who stands with a human ever stands alone.